Well, I've been coaching for 41 years, and I told players I've never been associated with a game like that ever in my life, and I hope I never am again. It was a standpoint that, they deferred. There was a little bit of a win situation. The first series, we failed to move the football. We got one first down, and we didn't move it after that. We punted. We had a short punt. They had a short field. 2 plays later, they're in the end zone. We make a not a very good decision in returning the ball on the next kickoff. We get a penalty, so we start down inside of our 10. We failed to move the football out there. Another short field for them, 14-0. And then it was just kind of a quick little fiasco over about the next couple minutes because we moved the ball out. We punted it. They fumbled the football. And I think there were 5 times on special teams that they laid the ball on the ground. And, we basically we didn't get any, but we got 1. And I mean, it was a standpoint that, when they fumble it, we get great field position. We miss a couple plays that we really should have had some touchdown opportunities. And then we missed the field goal. So it's still 14-0. And the defense comes out, and they hold them right there again, and they line up to punt. And lo and behold, with the pressure we're putting on the punter, he bobbles the ball, picks it up in full stride, and outruns everybody around the edge, and he goes 80 yards for a touchdown. And so instead of us having another opportunity for a score or even scoring on that same play, which we've done many times over the years I've been here, we give up a score. And so very next possession, we come back and we throw a pick 6, and like that, it's 28-0, and we're still in the first quarter. Early in the second quarter, they kick a field goal. It's 31-0. But to tell you about the resiliency of these guys here and the fight and the competitiveness they have, we kept battling. We kept coming back. And even in the third quarter, we got the game down where it was a 38-22 game, and so literally within a 2-score situation. And maybe I'm crazy, but I still believe we were going to win a football game, and I think every one of our players believed we were going to win a game. And so it was a standpoint. Pueblo did what a good football team does. They put together a drive, and they kind of had a chance to kind of put the things away. They scored another one late. But it was a standpoint that in that first quarter, it was just a situation that we had too many mistakes. We had a couple misfits as far as our defensive situation and assignments. We failed to move the ball offensively, and part of it was just a standpoint of quarterbacks missing a couple reads on things. And if we go back and we take a look at things, there were a lot of great things that came out of that football game. And it's a standpoint that's what we have to build on, and we got to continue to get way more consistent as a football team and take accountability and responsibility. And but I'm very proud of the fight that these guys had and the way that they continued to compete, because in most situations, you're going to call that ball game over, especially against a nationally ranked team. And I think our guys can sit back and they can look at it and they say, okay, you take that part away, and we competed tremendously well against a really, really good football team.
And then looking ahead to Black Hills State this weekend, what kind of challenges do they pose?
Black Hills has been a little bit of a nemesis the last couple of years, and they beat us two years up there, and so they beat us 2 of the last 3 years. But they're a very dangerous football team. If you take a look at theirs, their season, they've got a couple games that I'm sure they feel they should have won, and they had a couple mistakes, and all of a sudden they're sitting at 4-3 instead of at 2-5, and we're kind of in the same boat situation. So they're a good football team. One thing they do is they run around very well, and they run to the football, and they'll play very hard, and they're well coached. They're going to give us a lot of different looks defensively. They'll give us a lot of different formations offensively. And so, again, we're going to have to be sharp as far as our communication within our players and within our system, and guys just communicating and taking care of their job and doing their 111. That's really what it's going to come down to. But they're going to be a good football team, but I'm also looking for a great game out of our players and a great homecoming.
Questions?
Yeah, you said you've never been in a game like that before. After that game was over, what was going through your mind?
Well, number one, you're frustrated simply because you're seeing the things that are going on, and you know that you're a much better football team than what we showed. And then even when you look at the video on Sunday, and when we went through it with our players on Monday morning, there were a lot of really good things that don't show up because of what the score was. And so it was a standpoint that a long time ago I heard the statement, things are never as good as they seem, or they're never as bad as they seem. And somewhere in the middle is where reality lies. And when you look at that, there were parts of it that it just looked horrendous. And there were other parts that it looked very good. And so, it's just a standpoint that I shared with the team Monday morning. I've shared with the coaches. I said, hey, if any of them have a secret to decide what's going to help trigger this team to come out and play fast and play well early on in a game, I'm all for it. Right now, that's what we're trying to build and what we're trying to establish. But what I'm not going to fault is I'm not going to fault the effort of our players, because I mean they have busted their tails and they continue to compete very hard, and that's what gave us a chance to get back in that football game. Like I said, being down 31-0 and on the road to a nationally ranked opponent, and to come back and have a chance in the game speaks volumes about who they are as players.
With the ball on the ground, the interceptions, the turnovers, the weather, how do you kind of keep your team level-headed, especially if it's a big change of possession or like that punt that turned into a touchdown? How do you keep the team kind of square?
You know what? It's just a deal that you continue and you try to focus on the next play, and that, because that's the only one you can do anything about. And like I said, it was a situation that several things kind of just compounded early on. I'm sure that it was very frustrating for everybody there that was a Mesa fan or a Mesa player. But it was also a situation, like I said, if you look at it, I think our players did a great job of coming back and just really locking in and continuing to compete. And like I said, they really stepped back up and gave us a chance to be in that ball game in the third quarter of that game. And so as we look at it, like I said, we're just looking for how we can get that thing taken care of to where we can play with that great sense of urgency, from the very first snap. I'll go back into the game with Eastern New Mexico. We were down 37-17 in that game late in the third quarter, and all of a sudden we're going into overtime. And there are times that this football team has played literally outstanding, but there's also times we just have not played in that consistency. Now, part of it, you got to legitimately take a look. Right now on offense, Ty is one of only two seniors that we've got that have been starting for us and playing for us. Everybody else are sophomores and younger. That makes it very difficult. And if you look at it in the offensive line, for instance, again, we just found out that one of the other guys is out here now for this week. And so we have not had the same starting offensive line yet in any game that we've had. Several weeks ago, we were talking about it as far as receivers. We did not have any of the top 7 receivers even playing in the second half against Colorado Mines. Everybody was out and hurt. Well, it makes it difficult to develop any kind of consistency and continuity with that. We've had several injuries on the defensive side that have been huge, and so when you start taking a look at the different things that happen, our guys are going through some adverse situations, but they continue to rise back up. And like I said, I think it speaks volumes about them as people and them as football players, and I think it speaks volumes about our coaches. Our coaches continue to teach, and there are going to be times that it's going to be a little bit intense. And that's okay, because our players know that we care about them. We know that they're capable of performing at that higher level. And it's just a standpoint of getting that situation out of young guys and doing it on a consistent basis.
Ty, for you, within a blink, you guys faced such a big deficit. Was there a moment where you guys kind of hit the refresh button and said, okay, hey, let's get back to the basics, let's get back to our play and kind of settle in here?
It's pretty much after that punt return, the offense was like, we have to score on this drive, and if we don't, we might not be able to come back. But I feel like as an offense as a whole, we always are resetting ourselves when we don't, like 3 and outs and stuff like that. So I think as an offense, we're really good at resetting and then keep fighting throughout the game.
Coach kind of mentioned something about the weather and things like that. Is that something where you guys kind of just are like, hey, we can't change it. We got to play the game the way it's, we can. Yeah,
I think because both teams are facing that same weather, so it's just a matter of who can fight through it and fight through the diversity the better. So,
is that a type of game where you're able to take some things away, or you just try to forget about altogether?
The first quarter, definitely forgetting about that one. But after that, definitely we can build on a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yep.
See, Ty, you have been the only guy who's been in there on the line every week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look and you got, okay, there's 2 freshmen over here and a sophomore, and I don't even know that guy's name right now. And how do you try to get the cohesiveness? Because you've also had 3 different quarterbacks behind you that you're trying to get to the ball. What all changes for you with quarterbacks and all these young pups?
It's tough, but through practice we work on like rotation and stuff because we've known that's going to happen. So the quarterbacks are always rotating, which helps a lot. So we get familiar with everyone, and then the offensive line, I feel like it's just next man up, and they're doing a great job with that. So I think we're doing well with that, and then just leadership. So
yep. You were the older guy last year too, with freshmen all the way down the line. So can you kind of see that? Well, if they could stay in a game and stay healthy, the pieces are there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like because I've played the last few years, it just helps getting into games. That helps so much when you're in games. It's way better than practicing because you just get that experience. So once these guys start rolling and no more injuries, I think we'll get going. And
Is there a difference between the two quarterbacks for snapping the ball? I mean, it's spread offense, so it's, you know.
yeah, no, not much. It's just who you're listening to is the only difference. But we've gotten pretty used to that because Pueblo they would shift and they would yell, move and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of knowing who's back there and listening for their voice and not just the sound.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's different if they're under center.
Yeah,
obviously.
definitely different under center, but yeah, nothing different.
Yeah, Hayden doesn't want it here and here. Just give me the ball,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
How did the team feel going into the game? Like, were you guys hyped up? I mean, because after a first quarter like that, you could
Yeah.
almost kind of assume that, oh, we weren't as hyped as we normally are, or underprepared in a sense.
I think that as a defense, we felt we were really ready, but I think that possibly we weren't ready for the speed of the game and kind of how fast it was going to go at first. And so basically, I feel like we went out there and just were kind of scared, or I don't know if we're scared or just didn't do our jobs. A lot of people didn't do our jobs, and we kind of just got pushed around and 2 big touchdowns really fast. But once second quarter came around, I felt like we really stuck together and we came back to our groove that we had last week in Fort Lewis. And I felt like we really just focused on what each of us had to do, and we came together. But that first 2 drives just kind of took us by a shock, and we weren't ready for it, I think.
And you guys have, on the defensive side, have gotten through, maybe not to the extent of the injuries that maybe the offense has, but I mean, first game, Alec goes out, and all of a sudden you're playing pretty much every snap now.
Yeah.
What all has kind of transpired for you getting into the flow of a game now?
For me, is being the Mike linebacker, is being the leader on the field, and it's kind of the first time I've had the role on this team of being that leader on the defense. So for me, it's been knowing my assignment and knowing everyone else's assignment and being able to relay the call on the field to everyone. That's kind of been the most challenging for me, is to be that leader out there when I'm kind of new as it is. But I feel like Mason and the D linemen and the safeties, DT and Nick, have really helped me with all their experience, helped me kind of get into this role and take it on. So I think the coming together as a whole defense and with that leadership.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, you know, because there's been some pretty good little linebackers in this program.
There has.
You know, kind of what have you taken from the guys before you and kind of what Alec was doing before he got hurt?
Just being a leader on the field, off the field, in the classroom, in any aspect. I think that all the middle linebackers before me, they really took that initiative and were great leaders on all aspects and showed the whole defense and the whole team what it's meant to be on this team and what we expect.
Coach talking about how important it is for this team to get off to a fast start. I know the quarterbacks have talked about it, the running backs. What are you seeing that just isn't maybe clicking in that first series, or is it just maybe just the youth isn't quite
I think it might
caught up to that?
Yeah, I think it might be the youth and just the nerves that they have, because a couple of them are offensive line-wise are first starts, and they're just nervous. So once they get going, that we all calm down and then we start doing our jobs and getting our assignments done. So.
And the big brother calls every once in a while and
Yeah.
tells you what you're doing right and wrong.
Yeah.
Kind of watching this.
Yeah.
What all did he kind of pass to you?
He passed the hard work in the weight room and out in the field and stuff like that. He was a very hard worker and very smart. He watched film. He told me to watch as much film as possible just to be able to help yourself and your offensive line with the scheme of the defense and stuff like that. So he was really big on watching film, and I've taken that role on too as well.
And the last time Coach Martin called you by your correct name was when?
Who knows? Just kidding.
I'm right more than I'm wrong.
Yeah, this is
But
right.
I
This
am
is
wrong
right.
sometimes.
That's a start. That's all
It's a
you- that's
start.
all you
It's a
can
start.
ask for.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
You know, I'll share a couple other things on what Dylan was talking about. You know, defensively, if you go back in that game, you know, they had the first two drives, and really they weren't drives. They were the first. It was a 2-play deal, and they had the explosive run. The second one, they had a couple big plays, and they're in the end zone. If you take a look at that, really, Pueblo had one drive, and that was the one in the start of the second half, because there were 14 of those other points that were on the board when our defense wasn't on the field. And that was basically the punt that basically they bobbled and they run back, and then the pick six. And so literally our defense really only gave up one true touchdown drive. And you're talking about, again, like he said, guys as well. We've had some injuries there. Logan Bayes is out, who had been starting defensive end. Alex been out now for several weeks at the middle linebacker standpoint. Nigel Hale was starting for us early year. He had got hurt. He had a family emergency. He went back home to California. So all of a sudden we've got a lot of new faces there as well. And kind of like Dylan was saying, it's a standpoint that sometimes I think it is a situation that it's just a lot of new guys trying to get into that role, and Ty alluded to it offensively. I think sometimes there's a little bit of nerves. It's not that guys don't want to do it. I think sometimes it's just a standpoint of the nervousness of wanting to do it so bad. They're maybe overemphasizing how bad they want to do it, and giving, losing a little bit of the actual focus because they want to accomplish things so much. But if you take a look at it, and once we've gotten into the game a little bit, it's been a totally different situation. And so part of it, I think that they've hit it directly right on, head on, is just a standpoint of some of the youth, but that's also part of the deal. We've got guys now, they can't be a freshman anymore. They can't be a sophomore anymore. It's time to step up. You've been in the games now, and you got to be able to handle that. And, it's a situation that I think our guys are continuing to grow on that. But I think these guys have talked about it very directly, and I think that the points they made are very valid to what's happening within this football team. But also, I believe this football team is continuing to grow every single week. And, I still look forward to each week, and I think that's what these guys are looking forward to, of just getting ready to step back on and say, you know what, hey, we'll put that first quarter behind us. Let's continue to build on the things that we did after that first quarter. And I think that's exactly what this team will do, and I expect us to play very well on Saturday.